Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 120 of the Note Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Culberg, joined today by the fabulous Jo Zulaica, and we are going to be chatting about. I thought you stuck your finger up then. For anyone who's listening and not on the YouTube, Jo did this hair gesture, and I was like, wow, I know this is my show or whatever, but you're opening with that, but it was not it was the wrong finger. Oh, that would have been funny though. We are talking about brave women leadership. So, Jo, where do you want to start?
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so fired up to talk about this. I was telling you just before we started that I have a free Facebook group that is so much fun where you come on in and do your thing. And for 4 years, it was named something else until last night. I had previously named it Women Who Lead with Heart. It's just starting my coaching program, didn't really know what I was doing, feeling around. I was just going for this vibe of, women empowerment, uh, the type of leadership that is like anti-bro culture, integrated with your whole being. Like you can care about people and be compassionate. It's okay to cry. It's okay to be a whole person. And so this Women Who Lead with Heart was the name of my group, and it worked for a long time. But as time has progressed, I've realized what's most needed, what I'm always talking about, is being brave. And while if you're like all in entomology, like the source of how names come, like courage actually has to do with the heart. If you speak French, I don't. But there was this idea that I thought it's really about being brave. It's not about leading with heart. It's like being brave and bold as you lead. And so I renamed the group last night, and I thought that would be a great thing for us to talk about, because I'm all about talking about what does it mean to be brave? And do you have to be a leader to lead bravely? Like, do you have to have a title?
I love this
Newsflash,
so
no.
much because there's many points I want to circle back to. The first is I loved how you said back when I didn't know what I was doing. The fact that you took the step. I know a lot of the people I work with, a lot of my listeners, they're in that limbo land of, oh, I just need to, I need to get the right colors or the right font or the right name. And I'm like, I named it, I went with it, and then I allowed it to evolve. And,
Yep.
We might be doing another episode a year or 2 years from now where you're like, it's renamed this. It doesn't take away from or lessen the last 4 years. And I think this is such for very recently, I've been really leaning into the seasons with my
Mhm.
personal work and the work that I teach. And, in the season, in the spring of when you named it Leadership with Courage, or I've already forgotten the name. No, Heart,
Right.
Leadership with Heart.
Yeah.
That season is complete. You've had the
Right.
winter, and now the new spring of brave women leadership. The program has evolved. It's like if you
Right.
plant a tree, you don't expect that little sapling or seed to be able to be giving you fruit from
Yeah.
the first season through, because shit doesn't happen that way unless you buy it already established, and then you've got to transport it and worry that the roots will take and all this other jazzo. But you've let it
Yeah.
grow and evolve as you have. So that's the first thing. I love how you're like, well, I didn't know what I was doing. You didn't know what you
Yeah.
were doing, and you took action anyway. So that's a win.
Yeah. I
And then
like
the
that.
next part I really love is the defining what a leader is. I recently did an
Mhm.
episode with Jess Jash, and we talked about leadership as well. I've gone blurry
Mhm.
now. Computer gods are like, no. But she was like, a leader, a mum is a leader. And it's like,
Right.
yes. Like, it's funny, before we hit record, I had to push this recording back because I messaged you and I was like, I have some shit going down with my kids. Can we start now or later?
Right.
And one's sick and one's not, and one's nervous about going to school without the other, and so on and so forth. And the plates that you have balanced when you have, kids going to different schools at different times and doing different sports, if that ain't leadership, I don't know what
Exactly.
is.
I define leader as she who takes action.
Oh, I like that.
You are a leader in your family because you're the action taker, not at the expense of other members, but you're making things happen. You're planning things. You're using your voice. You're guiding people. You're making decisions. That's leadership. And that's the one problem I actually had with the name of using the word leadership, is that I think so many amazing women that do align with my message and all of the things that you and I vibe on, disqualify themselves because they're like, well, I'm not a leader. They immediately like downgrade their worthiness in that container because they don't have a title, or they don't work outside the home, or they don't feel like they're a high level executive, or they're not in corporate. That's a fallacy that right, when I go 3.0 and I rename it again, maybe I'll rebrand it so it isn't so, leadership focused, in that you can't be anything other than somebody who has a title that leads other people in like the more traditional formal sense of the word, because
But
I
I
don't think
love
that's what
that
it is.
kind of reclamation of a word and exploring the definition, because I don't think any of us can be contained in like a 100-word bio or however long Instagram gives us to say, who we are and what we
Right,
do. And
right.
it's funny, I was just having a conversation this morning. So, so I get up, I record a podcast, then I get the kids and stuff ready for school. Then I record another podcast. So it's like, I've lived a whole day and it's barely 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
But she was like, so like, what do you do? Like the whole elevator pitch style, which makes me want to die inside. But the thing is, when we try and say succinctly what we do, so you might choose a word like, oh, not in my case, but I'm a leadership coach. How many
Right,
people immediately disqualify themselves
right,
based on that couple of terms? Or if
right,
I say like, I help people with boundaries, are scared off by the word boundary, so once again disqualify themselves. But
right.
then how much attention do we have? Because some people, you ask what they do and they launch into this thing and you're like, I'm not
Huh?
really interested. So it's kind of how we don't pick a traditional definition of a term and then
Yeah,
use that to count ourselves out, and
right,
reclaiming leadership. Like, maybe, as I say, even if you put feminine in front of it, but sometimes if you put feminine in something, people also have a
right.
thing in
A
mind of, oh, so we're
judgment.
going to be burning bras and
Right, right. Exactly. Yeah.
So tell us more about the group. You said it's a free group, and what is the premise? Like, okay, why should
Yeah.
people join your group? Take us away. Let's give us a shameless plug. This is my
Well,
show. We can go wherever
it
we want.
right? It is a place for you to come and be inspired and uplifted, and also receive education for free on how you can be bold and brave in your life. And so it was lovely, Suzanne, that you were giving me kudos for starting before I was ready, that whole concept, like I named it one thing. But honestly, I should give the kudos to my audience, because they're the ones that taught me what I should name it now. Because all we kept talking about, right? It wasn't like I'm the wisdom owner. It's I'm the one that's facilitating this community, and I'm seeing what comes up again and again. I'm ministering to that with my coachy hat on, and it's firing me up, and it's like this momentum builds. But I didn't create it alone. It's part of the collective, and what everybody's talking about is overcoming self-doubt and imposter syndrome and fear of failure and fear of exposure and what will they think, and I'm feeling vulnerable, and I want to go do this thing, but then I pull myself back. And it all was this echo chamber of how do we be brave? So it was clear to
Yes.
me, like that's what we got to call this thing is, I thought, should I call it be more brave? But then I thought that almost sounds like you got to fight fear in the
So it sounds
face.
kind of bro markety to me. Like,
Totally.
let's
Totally.
put a pink banner on it so it looks like it's for chicks, but
Right.
we're like, go hard or
Yeah.
go home.
Right. Punch fear in the face. So yeah, so I found brave women leadership. It's a little bit of an overarching term, but immediately afterwards, all I'm talking about is like, this is a place where we come to bolster our confidence and shore up our courage and reframe challenges to see, this is what I love. Being brave can mean I'm scared shitless and I do it anyway.
Yes.
Being brave doesn't mean I'm fearless. It can be that I'm fearless, but really being brave means I'm scared, but
Yeah, and
I'm
I did it
pushing
anyway.
myself forward. Yeah.
And the
And
other thing I
that's
want to
what
add
I'm
to
loving
that,
about it.
because sometimes feel the fear and do it anyway. Once again, it's one of these bro terms or whatever.
Right.
Being brave, from my point of view, doesn't mean that you won't fuck up. Like, you can do the thing and have it turn out not at all how you anticipated,
Right.
but celebrate the fact that you were brave enough to have a crack.
Right.
And the other thing, tangent, but I'll bring it back to relevancy. So personally, I've dropped a lot of weight, 171 pounds. So, 78 kilos. And
Wait, that's how much you've lost?
yeah, an entire person.
Wow, Suzanne, I didn't know you
I've
before
written a whole
then.
book about this. So, I'll give you some
Ah,
deets later. But anyway, I met a lady very recently. I was visiting my family in Tasmania. I'm about to head back. And she'd dropped 50 kilos. So what's that? 120-ish pounds. And she was showing me the before and after photos. And she was really ripping into before her. She was like, I was fat, I was disgusting, I was
yeah,
lazy. And I was like, excuse me, I have to interrupt. I can't listen to this. And she's looking at me and I was like, can I offer something else? And she was intrigued. And I was like, that version of you took action. Like your thing about leadership is someone who took action. That
yep,
version of you is the one
right,
who decided to make herself a priority, to do the exercise, to change the food, the nourishing, to get more sleep. Like we should be crediting the brave version of ourselves, because the after us, the one who's dropped the weight or has a successful business or has the Facebook group with over 1,000 people in it or who has the following, they get all the accolades. They didn't do shit.
yeah,
It was the
yeah,
you who was like, I'm so scared and I don't know if this is going to work and this might fail like I have so many other times, but went up to the plate and did the action. And we should
right,
be celebrating the shit out of that version of ourselves, because what we
right,
do is sometimes the things we try don't work out on the first 37 tries. And
right,
then we use that as more evidence to berate past us, but past us kept going.
right. Yeah, beautifully said. Beautifully said. And one thing that's so important to know too is that being brave also means being in the moment. Right? If you think of any icon that in history or even in fiction, like in the movies, somebody, a character that's brave, they're not looking backwards. They might be motivated by something that happened before, but they're not oriented towards the past. They're thinking about, what do I do right now to get me further forward? And so it's really not helpful or even part of the conversation of being brave to be judging the past. It's like, we just keep stepping forward. That's part of it too.
Yes. And there's going to be new things that come up and you're going to handle it.
Right.
New setbacks or new obstacles or new barriers. It was funny.
Right.
So that first podcast I did this morning, I knew that I had one kid sick and the other not, and my husband's in the office. And I hadn't foreseen this. And she was like, oh, what are you going to do? I'm like, that's Susan hours from now problem. Right now, let's record this. And
Yeah.
then I'll sort it out. So sometimes being brave for me is another thing. It's not ruminating in what if or could or whatever, because then you're wasting. You're saying being present, being
Right.
in the now. I'm wasting now thinking about later. Later me will handle that. So I
I
managed to get the
love
school
that.
drop off done, and there might be an
Yeah.
issue. And I was telling you before we hit record, my daughter's a bit anxious about pickup. Like, what if she can't find me and whatever? And I'm like, that will also be Sue's 5 hours from now problem.
Right. Right. Exactly. You know, I saw a mutual friend of ours changed her Facebook banner or whatever with this saying that I thought, oh my God, I gotta grab that. It was, worry is a misuse of imagination.
Oh, I haven't seen that, but I love it.
And it's kind of
Yes.
like that. It's like, if you could spend any ideation or generation of ideas time, any daydreaming or wondering, the worst possible use is thinking of all the things that could go wrong or trying to figure out what might go wrong or plan for that. Like, that's like a waste of time. That's not going to really set you up. Our brain wants to do that. It feels like it's the smart thing to do, but how freeing is it that really all you have to do is show up,
Yeah.
which you model so beautifully, Suze. It's like,
You
when you
listen
come
to
on
my
my
show.
podcast.
If you're not a first person, if this is not your first episode, there's alarms going off. There's the other day, it was funny. I don't know if it came through the audio. I haven't listened back to it, but there was this sound, and I was like, what on earth is that? And my kid's playing with masking tape, whatever. Anyway, I came out, and my husband and my daughter are having a Nerf gun fight, like right outside my office. And I'm like, do you know I could hear you? But, the show must go on. Speaking
Yeah,
of which, this has been absolutely fabulous, Joe. We're at time. Let the
I love it.
listeners know, what do you do and where can they find you? Obviously, Brave Women Leadership Facebook group.
Right.
We're
Yeah.
there.
Go
But
search that on Facebook. It's my title now. I also live at my own home website. My first name is Jo, J-O, and I'm at www.joleader.com, because I'm all about supporting women leading in their lives, whether they have a traditional leadership position with the title and all of the executive networky corporate stuff, or they are also leading confidently in their lives. That's what I do, is I coach women to become confident leaders in their lives.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you
Thanks for having
everybody for
me.
listening. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.